So hello and welcome to another happiness class. It's a weekly class. Um, Loads of information about our class at bigquestionsanswered.com. It's a really practical class talking about, global to personal issues. I want you to talk in the live chat and we have a real conversation about really changing lives. So the first half of this show is going to be about addiction. The second half, as usual, is going to be about ask any questions about life. I've got a few lined up if you don't have any questions. I've got my old friend down there, Mashoud, and he's going to be a guest and a debater. And all the things I've got to talk about are based on ancient religion, science, and logic. And please do like the video. I'm not like a normal YouTuber, like I desperately need those likes. It's just like if you believe in the show and you press the like button, it'll promote the show a bit. So let's get started. So talking about addiction, let's paste this thing in. What is every addiction different, or are they all caused by the same issues? And so, as I say, everything I'm going to say is based on all the ancient different religions, but I'm particularly through Islam, and we can talk about that later on about why. You can even ask the question why, but we're going to be kind of discussing it. Oh, why does it look different? Why is that timer in the wrong place? Anyway,
A bit
the
high up.
timer, yeah, it's a bit
We
high
can
up. I don't
figure it
know.
out, though. Yeah,
You can figure it out.
we
Okay, so
can figure
anyway,
it out.
and so let me just quickly read this little quote from the Holy Quran. And as to those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until when he comes up to it, he finds it to be nothing. And he finds Allah, that is just the ancient name for God between many different religions, Allah near him, who then fully pays him his account, and Allah is swift in reckoning. So basically, what that's saying in short is that addiction is kind of like a mirage. You think you're going to get something, when you're near it, you find out it's nothing good, except for it's more like a punishment. That's a short version, but we will reflect on that more. But before I really get into it, I'm going to make a little comment about what are addictions, because I don't want people to think we're just talking about, let's say, drugs or whatever, right? I would say addictions are all sorts of things that are bad for you, that you habitually or you feel you absolutely have to indulge in. That could be anything from sugar. It could be even healthy looking things like exercise. Um, you might say, how can that be bad for you? Well, there are ways that it can be bad for you. Like there are people who are like top athletes who have depression, for example, right? Because they haven't got the proper balance in their lives. Anyway, what do you think, Mashoud?
Yep, I like that saying, isn't it? Too much of anything is bad for you.
Yeah.
So, you in Islamic tradition, you had one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad who his wife complained to the Prophet Muhammad saying he fasts all day and he prays all night. It's like he's addicted to just worship. And
Mm,
the Prophet called him up and said, "No, look, calm down. God does not tire, but you're going to get tired.
uh,
So calm things down. Everybody has a right over you. Your wife has, you have to give her time, give time to your family, give time to everybody. So doing too much of one thing or anything, too much of it is not a good thing. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give like the Islamic twist here a little bit about addictions and stuff. So yeah, one of the main functions in Islam is to kind of to control yourself and to
yeah,
avoid the instant gratifications.
yeah. And
And
the
yeah,
kind of thing you're getting into about is kind of the right balance. And the word for being rebellious in the Quran, which is written in Arabic, is it means to be going beyond the bounds. So there's a careful balance that you need, and that's what religion is. It tells you how to deal with this delicate system that we've undervalued how delicate it is, because it's so easy to be unhappy, and that's why so many people are wondering how to be happy. But anyway, so
hmm.
yep, we're talking
Well,
about
that's what
careful balance. Go
the
on.
Quran
Yep.
says, doesn't it? It says it kind of gives that answer that it's in the remembrance of God do hearts truly find comfort. So doing these instant gratification stuff, whether it be drugs or constant exercise, TV, or anything like that, that gives you that instant pleasure, you kind of have that niggly feeling afterwards, thinking, I just wasted a whole lot of time, or I shouldn't have done that, or this, that. It's there's no grander meaning. I think that's what Islam tries to
Mm.
promote. There's a grander meaning to life, and your real purpose is to serve God and serve humanity, and that's where I think you mentioned it. All the pleasure sensors are triggered when you help others and stuff, and that gives
Yeah.
you that proper permanent satisfaction as opposed to the instant little gratification and then regret or something like that afterwards. So,
Yeah. So
mm,
you're basically talking about what I was going to say in part two. Are
I know.
all addictions symptoms of the same sickness, right? Um, and you can disagree with me, right? But kind of like I'm going to say what you just said, which is this is a thing that we haven't understood, that first of all we need something really meaningful, and psychologists have known that we need something meaningful to be happy. Just lots of random stuff, like, sometimes we see in comedy shows that people are happier when they're stupid or something, or they do stupid things, but actually that doesn't make you happy. And I know too many people who don't live meaningfully or purposefully, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of just random, just do your job and whatever, and they're really unhappy. Okay, and you don't normally spot unhappy people because they don't tell you, because people, again, they don't really have deep and meaningful conversations with each other to find out who's happy and who's not.
Hmm.
But the statistics are out there, loads of people suffering from depression and stuff like that, right? So it's meaningfulness, and what's the most meaningful thing? It's God, right? And even psychologists are getting close to realizing that. Many psychologists have come quite close to that. So, first of all, one thing we know is that just looking at nature for some weird reason gives you peace, right? This is what
Yeah.
psychologists have found, right?
Hmm.
And so, nature, you might say, what's that got to do with God? Well, nature is a reflection of God's work. So why do we, like, a lot of people like to just look at the sea? Like, it's just water. It's just loads and loads of water, but it's
Hmm.
in uninhabited. No,
Inherit. What?
no,
What are you
but
trying to say?
it's kind of like there's nothing in the sea that's man-made, like for a long space, right?
Hmm.
So pure
Okay.
nature for a long, uninhibited, I don't know, something, that's the wrong word, but so like unobstructed, that's probably the word, right? um Nature, like a pure thing, right? And then we somehow feel relaxed. It's really weird, and that's just one of the many signs that really we want to be connected with God. And I recommend people watch my last show as well, about the purpose of life. I talk a bit more
Hmm.
about, how we know that our true purpose is to connect with God, just from logic and psychology and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, do you want to add
No.
anything to that?
No. I agree with
That's cool.
everything you said there. So that was really
Cool.
good. Yeah. Let's move on to the last one. We got 2.5 minutes.
So, yeah. So, what is the root cause of all addiction? Right. Okay. So, again, I'm going to talk about, it's kind of like rebelling against God's laws. Now, again, I try not to sound ideological when I'm talking about it, right? Okay. But part of God's laws is like the law of gravity, for example, right? We just think about spiritual laws, but it's just everything God's made, right? So if we rebel, let's say, against the law of gravity, we decide just jump off a building, it won't be all right. You're going to have an accident. It's going to hurt,
Hmm.
right? And so spiritual laws are like that. And we're beginning to realize that we can't ignore these kind of things of the spirit, if you want to call, how you feel deep down. And those things are like live meaningfully and stuff like that, right? And that's just a really broad idea of living meaningfully. That there's a reason why we've got a book full of things to do throughout you know throughout humanity's existence. We've been given guidance by God, like a manual how to live, and it's really detailed, like talk to your neighbors, be friendly like this, whatever, right?
Hmm.
And that's what is the root cause of it, is not knowing what makes us happy. So ignorance and falling foul of them. And then what we do, in short, with I'll try to summarize quickly, is that when we don't find happiness within those rules that God has given us, we try to find an alternative, and those alternatives don't work. And we get more and more
Mm.
unhappy, and we get more and more desperate to fill the void, and we're constantly chasing. So it comes back to that verse I mentioned before. There's people who disbelieve are the ones who don't listen to the laws and try to find their own way, and they just keep chasing different things which are completely unfulfilling. Any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the root cause here. I think Islamically, we are Muslims, and we're gonna kind of give that answer. And I think you've tried to go along with logic and stuff like that. But basically, yeah. I mean, what you're saying is right. Follow when you buy an item, you have a user manual of how to use that item, and we have a user manual of how to live life. And then for us, that's the Holy Quran.
Hmm.
We need instructions. Humanity need that, and I think that's
We're
what other religions
shouting out
fall.
for how many books are there on self-help, right? We're
Yeah,
looking for
we need that.
instructions.
So that's
Yeah,
and instructions are required, and I think we get criticized for too many laws. There's like 700 laws in the kind of instructions and stuff like that. The more the merrier. We need that kind of stuff, and they're not illogical. They're good laws.
yeah,
they're useful and they make complete sense.
yeah.
So
Do you want an empty self-help book or one with loads of helpful guides of what to do?
exactly, we don't want
Yeah.
wishy-washy stuff. We want more. A lot of them. Sometimes we need direct stuff, which is
Cool.
really good. So
So
cool.
solutions. So one of my favorite verses of the Quran. How do you fix addictions is the main thing we're going to talk about here in this little section, 10 minutes or
Mm.
less. And wow, where is the timer gone? The timer keeps disappearing. I have to fix it. I'm trying a
It's
new
gone right
laptop
up the
today.
top. That's messed
Yeah,
everything up. But
new laptop. Yeah. Anyway,
go on.
experiment. Anyway, Allah again is an ancient name. What did Jesus call God? Like Eli, Ella?
Eli, or in Hebrew, it's Yeshua.
Yeah. So there
So
there is a connection between Allah and the Arabic
so
Allah and
yeah. So Arabs, well, it just means the God, and even before the Prophet Muhammad,
hmm,
all the Arabs they consider like had like a pantheon of gods. They had loads of them, similar to like Zeus and a few other gods. Allah was the main god, but what the Arabs had done is they had created a whole host of his children and other gods
yeah.
as well.
So
So the
it's an
Prophet Muhammad,
ancient name, right?
it's
It's kind
it's
of
been
like
around for a long
and
time. You
Eli
have
is
bibl
kind of like the
well,
isn't
no,
it the
you have
Hebrew
you have
equivalent of
um you
Allah?
have biblical manuscripts before
Yeah.
the Prophet Muhammad where Jesus, when he says he speaks of God, it's ilaha, I think.
Hmm.
So
It's
it's
connected.
pre-Islamic. It's
Yeah.
around. It's been around for a long time.
So Allah, and hopefully people. This is the thing about the Quran. It's not just a book of logic, but it talks to the heart because it's made by the creator of human beings, so it knows how to talk to human beings if they're basically good people, right? So Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. This light is now lit in houses with. So this is connecting a few. I'm just trying to summarize a few
Hmm.
verses, right? This light is now lit in houses with regards to which Allah has ordained that they be exalted, that his name be remembered in them by men whom neither merchandise nor traffic diverts. Very old word, but basically materialism doesn't confuse you, right? Okay, from the remembrance of God and the observance of prayer and giving zakah. I should have translated some of these things. Zakah is just basically charity. Okay, they fear a day in which hearts and eyes will be agitated. It's the Holy Quran and a couple of verses
Hmm.
basically. So is addiction, so that's just something to think about, and then we'll kind of, maybe I'll probably refer to it a bit more later on. Is addiction a sign we are missing something? And kind of like I've said before, um uh I how do I put it? So there's a beautiful song like from this movie called Kingdom of Heaven. Have you heard of it?
Is that the
It's
Jerusalem one?
yeah, it's so beautiful, right? And
Ah,
there's a song that goes with it, and I like to steal like the
go on,
title of it.
sing it,
It's
sing it,
called.
Khaled, sing it.
I'm not gonna. It's in Arabic actually, so I can't sing it, right? But you'll have to check. I'll send you the link later on. But it's called "The Light of Life," right?
Hmm.
And they're basically talking about God. So the light of God is the light of life, and it's so true, right? If you're
Mm.
kind of in touch with your real feelings, and that's the thing, human beings or the Western materialistic side of people have overtaken our ability to reflect on what truly makes us happy. Okay. And like you were saying a minute ago, like simply remembering God has this peaceful effect on you. Like you don't even have to go and see the sea, as it were, or go into nature. You can just transport your mind just by thinking about God, and there's something about it that gives you peace and
Hmm.
happiness, right? So the light of life, God is the light of life, right? Without which we feel lost and empty. So our souls are constantly in search of what I would describe it as an exalted being, an exalted, and I'm using words from a great book called The Philosophy of the Teachings of Islam, where there's a section called The Search for an Exalted Being. And I don't want to ruin the beautiful kind of poetic writings in that particular chapter, and I do recommend you to. But it basically proves through this mysterious thing called love that actually we are searching for God our whole lives, and a kind of an inkling to prove that is like, when you fall in love, right? When you fall in love with a person, you don't really see that person as themselves. You kind of, you put them up to on a pedestal as if they're perfect. Why would we human beings do something really strange like that? When you fall in love, you go,
Hmm.
oh my god, that person's perfect, and that person's not perfect because it's a human being, right? But
Yeah,
why do we even
the
do
faults
that?
of that person become good and
It's just a
attractive, basically, isn't
right.
it?
So we do
Yeah.
this weird thing because we're in search of something perfect and beautiful, and it's ingrained in us, and that's God. Anyway, your thoughts?
That reminds me of like the concept in Islam about abstinence or detachment of the world. So look for things that are permanent.
Mm,
And it reminds me when the Prophet Abraham in the Quran, it has a story about him when he, like, for example, saw the stars and he goes, "Oh, could this?" I think he was kind of playing along with with the other people who worship the stars and things like that, and he would say, "Oh, is this God really? Okay." And then when it came daytime, stars disappeared because, oh, I don't like things like that. And then the moon, oh, this is bigger. This could be God, and that also disappeared. And then the sun came, oh, this is the biggest, and then that disappeared at night. And he just said, I don't like things that are basically not permanent. So
mm,
it kind of points to we should truly love things that are permanent. And what is permanent? There's only one thing that is permanent: God.
right.
So
And
not
that's the only
loving
meaningful thing,
exactly, yeah.
right?
So
Everything.
that's
If,
what it
if
is.
if you spend your whole life collecting money and then you lose it when you're dead,
You're dead.
right?
That's it.
It
What's the point? It's not going
and
to
deep
carry with
down,
you.
it's that's why we struggle with it, because we deep down we know it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Even though short-term thinking is I want to show off to people how great I am with loads of money, right? But
Mm,
yeah. So
cool. So
is addiction just in our minds, right? So a lot of people, these so-called gurus like Eckhart Tolle, they're all about like think in the now, like just it's all in your mind. And I think that's wrong as well, right? You can't just simply believe in God. Your body is that your feelings are connected with your actions, right?
yeah,
So you need to do good things. That's one thing. But okay, so there's an order of things, right? So you got to know that there's a God, right? And you got to be thankful to God. Like, and I try not to repeat stuff I say in every show, but I've talked about loads and loads of times why we know God must exist. It's a false bit of propaganda to think that science tells us God doesn't exist. It's completely wrong. Like I've said it like a million times. Like even one hemoglobin enzyme, which you need like 270 million of them to make a single blood cell, and you need like ridiculous numbers of them. For one of them to exist is impossible within the span of the universe, like the age of the universe. For one
by
of them, so
chance.
you can't
Yeah.
you exactly random.
Mm.
But at the same time, I kind of have to start explaining things like I do believe in evolution, right? That's God says he's the evolver right in the beginning of the Quran, right? He goes,
Mm.
I am the Lord, which is basically the one who creates and stages. I'm the evolver of the
Of
world that
things.
we
Yeah.
live in, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we're not anti-science at all. We're the opposite. I'm just telling you, science says God must exist, but you've been fed a lot of propaganda. A lot of people have been fed lot of propaganda that they're opposite things. They're completely wrong. Okay, and so
So I agree
there's
with that, and I
yeah.
think also with this addiction is a sign of we're missing something. I think I personally believe there's a spiritual element of, yeah, you look for God, your inner being is looking for it, but I wouldn't reject the physical, the kind of the chemicals, the body composition and stuff like that. Like the a lot of people are into addictions because they get dopamine hits, and
Ooh, we're gonna yeah.
they're stuck with that. They get that. Their brains kind of get used to that. They begin to form links and stuff like that with these addictions, and that's also a part of it as well. So I think
Hmm.
tackling both is required.
How did
Um,
the time run out so quick? Anyway, that just reminds me. But the funny thing is, we're going to talk about that specifically. Is happiness just chemicals in our minds, right? So
ah,
that's we're gonna have a section for that as well, right? Anyway, but that also reminds me. Do check out the description where I've got like a whole web page as a summary of all the stuff that I kind of intended to say. Like it breaks down the core ideas of this class, as it were, right?
mm,
So anyway, so rehab or rehabilitation. So I like to come from a point that we are all flawed people, where nobody's perfect. We're definitely going to mess up. So how do we come back from that? Is the question, right? We're going to
mm,
get addicted to lots of bad stuff, porn, drugs, all sorts of drugs, like even sugar, right? We're always messing up and stuff, right?
mm,
Through ignorance or just bad habits or whatever, right? And I want to talk about how we get back from that because that's really important. We're definitely going to mess up. How do you get back from that? So I'm going to read this. This is something I've known for a long time. And I'm just going to be interested in what you think is a connection between the different parts of it. I'll just be interested if
mm-hmm,
it's automatic or not. It'd be a fun exercise, right? So anyway, the first question is: are we are all messed up? How do you get back from not being the person you like? Because I don't think we like being addicted. We hate
mm-hmm.
ourselves for that, right? That's
Great.
just the question, as it were. But
Yep,
anyway,
yep.
from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he says, "You will not enter paradise," and I'm going to turn that into "you have happiness in this life and the next," and that's based on
Mm-hmm.
the Holy Quran, right? Okay, until you have faith, and you will not have faith until you love each other. Shall I show you something that if you did, you would love each other? And the answer was, spread the greeting of peace between yourselves. And let me just quickly explain that. For there's a in Islam and Judaism and original Christianity, in some I've seen it in some churches still, there's a standard greeting which is called peace be upon you, or assalamu alaikum, or assalam alaihim in Hebrew, right?
Hebrew.
So that's just anyway, that's the intro done. Do you see?
Jesus
I'd
says
be
that,
interested.
sorry, in the
Yeah,
Bible when he meets his
right.
disciples, he says that peace be upon you. So
Yeah, and
yep,
I've been to a church where the priest is saying "peace be upon you," and
cool.
I've seen a movie where they say "peace be upon you" as well in a church or something. So there's still like it's called
There's
the
remnants
the
who still stick with it. What's the movie called?
yeah. The lucky ones, I think it was called. They come back from anyway. So long.
Anyway,
Another movie. I'll send you a link to
go on
afterwards.
then. Yeah.
But anyway, do you see any connection between like saying peace be upon you and spreading love and then knowing connection of having faith? Like, do you see anything? Is it obvious? I'm just wondering.
I guess it comes back to the point of that if you love a person, you naturally begin to love what that person does and what that who that person loves as well. So is it that
Hmm.
simple? I mean, it's that tradition, I guess, in
Okay.
Islam
So
that
let
you
me let
love
me see.
God.
I'm gonna break it down and see what if you agree, right? So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully people might realize that it's kind of there's a
Mm-hmm.
backwards order. You start with the peace be upon you thing. That's actually the first step.
Mm.
because it says you will not have this unless you do this, unless you do that, right? Okay, so it really starts with saying peace be upon you to basically everybody,
Everybody.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you don't want to say that out loud, you can say it in your mind or something. And when you say peace be upon you, you have to clarify it's not just words. In Islam, and I think in maybe Judaism, right, and originally Christianity, it means like I promise to not do anything bad to you through my words or my hands, right? Okay, so when you do that, um it's called like, it's kind of like a, I forget the word, but when you repeat something, it's just like music. When you listen to the Rocky, was that Rocky Eye of the Tiger, right? You keep
Yeah. Yeah.
hearing it, and you start believing it, right? In the same way, if you keep saying things, it actually affects your mind. That's one thing, right?
Hmm.
And how does it, like, if you say, I wish you well, like, Mashoud, I wish you well, peace be upon you, like, I'm feeling already, right? And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you don't, you know what I mean, we are subtle beings and these things affect you. And generally, if you do anything good, you get a taste of, these are really subtle things you have to try, right? You, when you do something good, you get a taste of what it is to be good, and you go, I want to do more of that. But anyway, that's kind of like, so all I'm trying to summarize is, when you go around to everybody and you say peace be upon you, what you're doing is you're feeling good towards strangers. Before, what you do, especially in London and westernized countries, everybody's a stranger, everybody's a sort of enemy, don't make eye contact and all this kind of stuff. And
Mm.
you start reducing that and you start finding love for people. And that's not the end of the story, but would you kind of roughly agree with that?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think a lot of us take it for granted in our Muslim tradition that when we meet each other, we often start off by saying "Assalamu alaikum" in Arabic, which means peace be
Yeah.
upon you. But it's become into like a routine. We don't
Automatic.
really, yeah, an automatic response when you see somebody.
Yeah.
You don't really think about it. And I like what you're saying, that we should actually think about it. What are we actually saying?
Yeah.
And mean it. I
Yeah.
think that's quite a
So,
nice thing.
and that's a great point, that you cannot just be born into religion and think your problems are solved. You have to really mean it and understand and practice deeply what it is. Otherwise, you don't really benefit from it.
Yeah.
And so, coming back to psychology and science, right, which I've already said, this is quite known that if you repeat something, it affects you, right? But also, they've proved, and again, there's links in the website in the description that I've whatever, right? um, that the key factor in addiction, and they've tested this on rats as usual, right, is that when they're lonely or disconnected or lonely, basically, okay, they're more likely to take drugs. So they put this little cage where you could either have water or take cocaine water or something like that, right? Okay. And the lonely rat would always take the cocaine water. But when there are loads of rats and they're all happy together, they would just have the normal water, like it's proved. And it's kind of
Mm.
like true of human beings,
We are
right?
a
You
society,
find,
yeah, we're a society
yeah,
kind of. What's the word? Like we need a society.
alienated
We need that. We as a beings, we need
social
other
beings.
people. We're social, yeah, exactly. We're social
Yeah.
beings. So I think I've seen that. That was that a TED talk? I think, wasn't it? We were
Yes. The what
describing that.
we how what everything we've know about addiction is wrong. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
basically,
By Johan Harris
yeah.
or
I
no,
like that. That's a really
something
good
like that.
thing. I think,
Yeah.
yeah. And so brings it back to the saying of the prophet: when meet people, talk to them, spread the message of peace,
Yeah.
and love one another, and that should push away your addictions and
And
ease your
Islam
way.
is so great at that in so many ways, right? Like you're forced to say, you have to say, this is like one of the big rules. You must say salam, say peace be upon you to people,
Hmm.
right? And then Islam just provides millions of other ways. Like you have to come to the mosque 5 times a day, right? And stop working and stand shoulder to shoulder and hug people. And then fast. We last time you came on the show, we were talking about fasting, like fast eating all together. These are really
Hmm.
cool things, like hippie things that would like people love if it happened, right? Um,
Yeah,
but I'm gonna whiz through because I bet, because I can't even see the timer on this new laptop, right? But anyway, um, so
it'll be
uh,
7:30 in 1 minute.
so I got 1 minute, right? Okay, so in short, so what's the point of loving, right? You can, there's an automatic good thing, like you connect with each other, feel less alienated, whatever. But the point of loving people, okay, is that you start learning from more people. When you have a lot of hate, you don't listen to anybody. Okay, right
Mm.
now in society, it's broken up into millions of pieces or millions of subgroups. Yeah, and nobody's listening to the other person. But if you have love for everybody, you learn from everybody, and you learn so fast. You learn truth, and when you have truths, the truth will free you.
Mm.
Right. So the truth is out there. It's not a secret, and it's on this website and all this kind of stuff. Okay. All right. Okay. So oh cool. So we've done that. We've talked about addiction, and now we're going to talk about the Bible and the connections between them and things like that, right? And one of the reasons I suppose I should give different reasons why I'm talking about it. One is to sort of honor one of our regulars called Alika, who's a Christian, and she's been making comments and things like that. So it was based on this that I picked up this topic, and she said like, oh, I had said that the Bible is not very scientific, and it's quite well known that it's not scientific, but we were talking about that in detail. Then I said how the Quran is scientific, and then she pointed out certain things and saying, oh, there's contradictions and things like that. And we will talk about those things, even though I have in my previous video in the comment section outlined all the answers to all her questions. Yeah. So um oh, that's it. You know what? By the
Mm.
way, this I think this is the wrong quote. So sometimes I
I
don't
was
have
wondering
enough
why
time
that. I
to.
was wondering why that. How that linked
That was
to
from
all of
last
this.
week. That was from last week. It's like, how are you going to connect that one?
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, right? So there's we're gonna have so many quotes. So I don't need that particular one in a minute, right? But rough quotes, okay. Um, so let's get on with this. Is there a relationship between the Holy Quran and the Bible? I want to quickly say a few things, and you can say a few things. I want to say the strange thing about Islam, and the really logical thing about Islam, is that it says that all religions are connected, all ancient religions are connected, right? It's not like God forgot humanity and then at one point suddenly realized humanity was there and started to guide them. So we believe in Christianity, it's kind of like the origins of Christianity, and
Mm.
we can talk about that later. But in short, I'll say there is no Christianity. Jesus wasn't a Christian, right? He was a Jew. But so we believe in Judaism, and we kind of, but we still like, but we're still really friendly with Christians. Like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, like made a charter that for all time, like never attack a priest, never touch a church, never like it's in the Quran as well, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of love for all religions and a lot of respect. And even if we have differences, the Quran says, come together in a word that you agree on, which is you believe in one God. So like
Mm.
finding ways to connect people rather than disconnect people, right? But sometimes it's important to say what's wrong, right?
Mm.
Because the truth is the truth, right? Any thoughts about that? Any there's probably a million things about we can say about connection between the Holy Quran and the Bible,
Yeah.
but
I mean, the for the Christians, the most important character in the Bible would be Jesus, and he is incredibly important in the Holy Quran as well. I mean, he's mentioned more times by name than the Prophet Muhammad. His mom, Mary, is there's a whole chapter named after her, and so there's a lot of emphasis, and we have a lot of love for Jesus as well. And yeah, we believe he had
even
revelations,
even
and
Mashoud's son is called Jesus
there you
or
go. His
Isa,
name,
the
yeah,
Arabic
Isa, the
version of it.
Arabic version of that. Yeah.
I don't think
So
there's any Christians called Jesus, but then there can't be. But yeah, but
they
there's
will
so
know. You
many.
find a lot of. I think a lot of African countries do have that.
Oh, really?
I've
Interesting.
heard quite a few Jesuses in Africa.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's a lot of we have yeah basically there's a lot of link, and I think Islam kind of it sees these other religions, and it's like evolution in a way. So Moses was sent, to the Israelites some 2,000 no 3,400 years ago. He preached to them. He gave them laws and instruction, the Torah, the first five books of the Old Testament, and then they went along. Prophets were sent, and then Jesus was sent 1,400 years later to kind of correct a lot of the misconceptions and a lot of the untruths that had come through, basically. But he was a Jew. He followed the original teachings of Moses, and then afterwards, Prophet Muhammad was sent around 500 or 600 years after Jesus. And again, one of his missions was to correct the kind of misconceptions that had been brought into previous religions. And we believe, sadly, a lot of misconceptions have come into the Bible, which is a big thing. So
Yeah. So I
yeah,
kind of throw this in. What skin color is Jesus? So it's kind of like the side topic, but I understand him to be from the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. He was pinkish white,
reddish.
reddish,
Yeah.
reddish,
So he
reddish,
was
pinkish.
in
Yeah, yeah,
between me and
yeah,
you, Khalid. There you go. So
yeah,
he was
yeah.
he was an Arab. He was an Arab, and so bluntly put, he was a Jewish Arab. He didn't have blue eyes like a lot of
Yeah,
Hollywood movies depict. He probably did
yeah,
have long hair. We have
yeah.
an image in the Turin Shroud,
Yeah.
a
So
kind of
I'm wondering
noble image
why
there.
Cowan plays MC, which is basically my son, right? Why would he would ask that? But I think the reason why people ask that question is like if you are a black person and your God is white, that's a bit of a problem. Like why did God not choose to be black, right? That's an old thing, and I don't think it helps to believe in a god who took a certain human form is maybe the idea behind that. I don't know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
somebody
whatever.
could. I guess that's kind of uncomfortable. I guess, isn't it? If you're black or if you're pure white and say, "Oh, my God chose to incarnate himself as an Arab."
Well, I mean,
What's going What's going on there?
that's one of the reasons why the slave trade was possible, right?
Hmm.
Because they treated black people like less than human. So, and it's
Yeah,
quite easy. But
people
if your
have
god is
just
black, you can't do that.
people have justified in the past
Mm,
slavery. They've justified it through the Bible, but then the other way around has happened as well, where they justified freedom and no non-slavery in the Bible as well. But the Bible, on a side
mm,
topic, Bible doesn't condone or condemn slavery. It accepts it, and it's fine.
mm,
So yeah,
yeah.
that's how it is.
Okay, so the main thing, how scientific are the Holy Quran and the Holy Bible? I'll do a really quick thing as much as I can. So I suppose we'll start from the Bible. The Bible literally starts from saying, "Oh, we've got Alika! Yay, Alika's come!" Right. So the Bible starts on Genesis saying that it was created in 6 days, and even before the sun was created, there was like it was an evening and a sunset and all this kind of stuff, right? Which doesn't make sense. Like, how can you have uh, an evening and a sunset before the sun was even created and things like that? So, and scientifically, we don't believe. Nobody really believes that, and all the evidence shows that the universe not created in 6 days. Um, and loads of other things like the description. I asked, we're both me and Mashudo in the WhatsApp group with other Christians. Where I asked them like, what are scientific things in the Bible, and he, some expert gave a couple of verses like the universe is like a tent with grasshoppers in it, and I was like, it's not a very scientific description. And the understanding was that basically stars are little things poked into this tent. Yeah. So there's really ancient but unscientific understanding, nothing to do with what I think the creator of the universe, God, would have said. And so, because I'm not going to go into that too much, what does the Quran say? It says all sorts of things, like it talks about, has so many crazy ideas that have been proved true even recently, like the Big Bang Theory. It said that everything in the universe was in a closed up mass, and then it opened up, and everything was in that dot. Such a strange thing to say, but after 14, 1500 years ago, even Einstein, when he first heard of this idea, he was like, it can't be true. And he was like really trying to prove it not to be true. And then he realized it was true. So this is a really strange idea. And now, the, you know, and the Quran got so many ideas and things that even now, like if I asked you, let's get I don't know, the one that comes to my mind is where does sperm come from, right? Most people will say down there, the dangly bit, right? That's
Hmm.
But actually, sorry, where does so the Quran says the gushing fluid that comes when you're ejaculating, where does that come from? And most people think it's the dangly bit, but it's not. It's between the spine and the breastbone. You might I don't know if you've ever heard of that particular
I've
verse
heard
of
the
the Holy
Quranic
Quran.
verse. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it comes from places that so we don't even most people don't know where these things come from, and the Quran has mentioned it. I could just keep going on, and I'm trying to
There's
save.
loads. I mean, yeah, you're right.
There's
The Quran
so
has
many.
a
Yeah.
huge amount, and I don't think anybody has ever tried to
Oh,
argue.
that's so funny. That's so funny. She's quoted it. Oh, thanks, Alika. You helping us out.
There you
Appreciate
go.
it.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
when it comes to the Bible, I think nobody will actually come and argue that the Bible has many scientific truths. There's not. It might have some obscure things, but you look at other parts of it. Unfortunately, it's not very scientific. There's concepts of. I mean, even if you can't take certain some things have to be taken literally. I mean, you got the story of Samson who was like Superman, and then until he got his haircut, and then he lost all of his strength. I mean, what happened there? What's going on there? Demon
Mm.
possession, resurrections, God man coming to the earth. It's
Have we
yeah.
somehow run out of time for that? This is terrible. Sorry about
We've
this.
got
I'm
20
gonna
minutes left. So what's the discussions
let's
after
just
that?
talk about all these things. Let's just talk about this and I'll change the whatever afterwards, right? So thank you, Alika. Really appreciate you saying a lot of the standard things. So she wasn't actually trying to help us, I just realized because I looked at the other comments. But no, but it's also helping her. Like I always welcome Alika because every time she explains or makes a thing or an accusation, it gives an opportunity to explain things and it makes Islam look even better, right? So
Mm,
what she's saying is really standard and I appreciate her saying, right? So first of all, she said this thing about um you should listen to the beta ruler even if he's black with the brains of the size of a raisin. So you might have heard this one, right? And it sounds really racist, right? It's just that those people at that time were really racist and that's what they thought was a person that they don't want to listen to. That's kind of a side issue, right? I'm going to try to, I mean, have you got any comments on that?
You have, I mean, yeah. I mean, if he was a racist, the Prophet Muhammad, I don't think he would surround himself or have a lot of black companions who were very high ranked. I mean, the first one who was given the privilege to have the call to prayer, Hazrat Bilal, he was black, and loads of other scholars have come afterwards who have been black, and it's not like nobody said, "Ah, you're black, you're you're a thick person or whatever like that, or you're not as evolved as us or anything like that." No, that concept wasn't there. I mean, if you look at the other saying of the Prophet Muhammad in his final sermon, he said the same thing there, that no Arab has any preference over a black person or this person over that person. So he cut at the root of racism completely. I
It's
think.
probably the least racist religion in the world. It's like when you come to the Kaaba, the pilgrimage in Mecca, like everybody just wears simple clothes, they're shoulder to shoulder, doesn't matter what color you are. Malcolm X, who was really racist before he went to the Hajj, the Kaaba, when he saw people like that at his time, he lost all his racism against white people, you know?
Mm.
So,
So
but
yeah, I
thank
think
you,
the
Alika, for
head
that comment.
in that saying, I think the prophet was just simply telling the people what they. For a lot of them, some black people weren't particularly intelligent, and he was explaining in that sense. But he himself, I don't think he had a, an
I mean,
iota
everything he
of
keeps
racism.
saying was against that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, cool. So, but yeah, back to this thing. So he's created from a drop of sperm. So first of all, the translation's poor, right? It's called is a gushing fluid from ejaculation, right? So it's not the sperm itself. So when you ejaculate, people don't know this, right? Because not everybody is kind of like a medical guy and like focusing on what is it made out. You don't care what it's made out, right? But I think it's only 5% sperm and the rest is some other fluids, right? Where do those fluids come from? They don't come from your balls, basically, your testicles. Yeah, they come from some other bit and I've forgotten the name, right? But anyway, these things are really easy to kind of Google, right? Where does it all come from, right? Um, and I'll even send links on the bottom, right, to videos and things like, the body parts, and it's exactly between the backbone and the ribs. So if I'd ask Alika or yourself, even, right? So where does the stuff come out from, right? When you ejaculate, you would say
Mm.
the balls, right? And so
Mm.
we don't know until you research, and then you find out, wow, the Quran's been right all this time. And the great thing about it is that if it was man-made, you would say it comes from your testicles, right? Because
It's
that's
obvious.
obvious, kind
Yeah,
of. That would be
nobody
your
at
guess.
that time opened
Yeah,
somebody up and operated on them or something like that. Oh, Alika doesn't like your response. I don't know. This is a
yeah.
sciencey kind of thing. I've never really been a sciencey person,
Yeah,
so
but anyway,
I
I'll
will leave this
put
to you,
like
Khalid.
links. I'll put links, and you can check out for yourself. You don't have to believe me, whatever, right? The Quran is wrong here, and so I just proved that it is right there, right? And I will put links, right? But so I really appreciate Alika saying that, and cool smiley face for that. Like that was, I think that was a confusion earlier on,
Hmm.
and yes is something else, and no, it isn't. I think she's disagreeing, which is fine. Don't have to agree. You check out the afterwards. I'll post a link to all the scientific information regarding that, right? So let's keep going. I don't know how the time ran out so quickly, the first 10 minutes about the science bit, so let's just keep going for another 4 minutes, and then we'll go to the next topic after that, right? So we're still doing the sciencey thing about let me paste it again. So copy. This is all in honor of you, Alika, because we appreciate your participation. So double.
So
Let's
the
see what happens
last
if I
question I
zoom.
think is on, isn't it? Could science be wrong and the Holy Bible be correct? And this is in fact one of the arguments of one of our good friends on that WhatsApp group, that yes, the Bible is correct and science has got it wrong. So
Mm,
the world was created 6,000 years ago.
mm.
Over this period, evolution is wrong. Evolution is wrong, and these kind of things. So I don't know.
What do you, I've got two things I want to say. So first of all, Alika, did you? I just realized I haven't. So I was going to respond again, but more in depth to Alika's comment about last time about like the Quran having contradictions about the universe being created in 6 days and 8 days and stuff like that, which I did respond to already, but I'm going to say again because people might not have read those comments. But I'm interested, Lika, have you been checking out the comments in the non-live comments? Because I'm interested. Do you check them out or see them?
Khalid, you need
Where
to
I
get Alika
explained.
on the show. That's what you need to
Yeah, I
do.
mean, I did ask Alika. I think I'll ask you again, Alika. Anytime you want to come on the show, you're welcome to be as a guest. We're not horrible people, so we won't bite or anything. Hopefully, you can see that from being a regular, uh, whatever.
Viewer.
But viewer, that's the word. Yeah, I'm trying to rush through and say lots of things. So do tell me. I read the comments the day after, but found nothing. Then yeah, I wrote. Please do check out the previous video. I really appreciate you taking time, and do comment and disagree with me, right? And so we can have a non-live discussion as well, right? But anyway, so you said last time that the Quran says the universe was created in 6 days and 8 days, therefore there's a contradiction. And I suppose that could seem like a contradiction. So I very quickly explained that the words first of all, I suppose there's so many different ways, but the word days really are better translated as epochs or space of
Period.
time, right?
Mm.
Periods. Yeah, that's an easier word, right? Okay. And I think that's even true. I've heard a rabbi referring to parts of the Torah
A
where they
lot of
talk about
Jews
Yom.
take the Genesis account metaphorically and say the same
Yeah,
thing. That it's not
right.
days, 24-hour days. It's periods. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and it can't even be 24-hour days because this is when it's talking about those verses are particularly talking about before the sun was even created. So how could it be 24-hour days? It wouldn't make sense, right? Okay, but even then it supposedly could be for some reason 24 special, but it's not true. Okay, because again the Quran has talked about one day being worth 50,000 years and things like that, right? But anyway, something that was really cool when I did a bit more research about the 2 days and the 6 days and the 8 days thing. First of all, when I looked at the verses, Alika, you posted, it wasn't 8 days. There was no 8 days mentioned at all, right? But the verse you mentioned was really interesting. The two verses, if I combine them or something, right? So you mentioned the verse where it talks about the creation of Earth in 2 days, right? And it says a couple of interesting things. First of all, when the earth was being created, and loads of people won't know this, but it was very smoky. And the Quran describes the atmosphere as smoky at that time when it was being created. And also, if you look at the 2 days versus the 6 days, okay, that is the perfectly correct ratio in terms of the time when Earth was created, the time span for Earth to be created versus the time span for the universe to be created. So again, science is backing up what Islam is saying.
No, time is up.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go on to one more topic to spread it out. Hopefully that was useful, Alika. Let's talk about the chemicals in the brain thing because I said we were going to talk about it, so let's talk about it, right? And the timer's in the right place now, so I can actually see what's going on.
Mm.
Okay, that was weird. I don't know what happened there. I have to figure it out. Different laptop. Anyway, so yeah, the heavens are smoky. Heavens, by the way, Alika, is just the atmosphere. Anyway, um,
Address it
and
the next time.
then yeah, I talk about yeah, exactly. So we're kind of yeah. I'm not sure what to add to that, right? Anyway, so, is happiness just about balancing the chemicals in our brains? Okay. And so, here's a little quote from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Do not laugh too much, for excessive laughter deadens the heart, i.e., spirituality. And you might say, what's that got to do with anything? It's all about the perfect and very subtle balance of life to be happy, is what I'm trying to get across. Okay. Um, and so, that's kind of the brief reason why I explain that. It gives you a feeling of what is Islam's path to happiness, as it were. It's a very careful, delicate balance. And anyway, so let's go to number one. Can drugs, illicit, medical, even ancient, so there's these famous ones that are really popular, ayahuasca and all this kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
Okay, any of these kind of drugs, can they keep you happy? Just not make you happy for 1 second. Then they keep you happy, maintain happiness, right? And my brief answer, and then you can have a go, Mashood, is that you'll find that when you try to chemically create happiness, what you get is an imbalance, and then those things that are like often used to be make you happy, like alcohol, they're actually known by medical people as depressants because you get a bigger low because your body has this thing called homeostasis. It wants to find the balance.
Mm.
So forcing, forcing a happiness effect through the incorrect means is bad long term. It's like believing, this is my last thing, but it's not an accurate connection description, but like if you've got a dial in your car that says your car is full of petrol, right, and then it goes low, lower, low, just because you force the dial to go a certain way, it doesn't mean the petrol
Correct.
tank will
Yeah.
fill up, right? It's
Mm.
just that's just an outer measure of what's happening when you do the right things. If you Yes, anyway, any thoughts?
I don't know. I don't think anybody would agree and say can drugs and stuff like that keep you happy. They might make you, like you said, they'll make you happy temporarily. It's an instant gratification thing, but thereafter, like you said, like you have these big sugar hits or anything like that, they'll give you a big high, and then you'll have a equally tumbling down, basically, isn't it? So, my short answer, no.
Yeah, but I'm going to disagree with you and say that nobody would say that. So I was talking to, I think he was a Cambridge, Oxford graduate, top researcher, and whatever, right?
Hmm.
And he was saying basically that there must be a chemical way of controlling happiness, right?
Oh,
And think about it. How many people are addicted to drugs? They deep down are trying to control their happiness level through drugs, right? Even though you know what I
No,
mean?
but
There's
he's
something in it.
making an assumption though, I guess, isn't he? Thinks that there could be a way
He would like
of,
to, yeah.
yeah, he would like to invent some kind of chemical or drug to keep you happy. I don't know. Nothing like that exists. Every drug that we know of right now doesn't keep you happy. I mean, unless I don't know, knocks you into a coma or whatever like that. But I don't think they're particularly happy. So don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it's a weird one, that one, to be honest.
Yeah. Anyway, so again, there are some great comments on Shah Jahan, for example, and I'll spend like 1 second on it. Like, why cannot God create the earth in 7 days? Well, he can, but he didn't. And that's it. That's the short answer, right? And we know that from science. And yeah, he can, but like he didn't think it was a good idea, right? And this is the verse that like Alika said last time, and again I said there isn't 8 days. Do check out the reference because I did check it out, and it didn't say 8 days. In fact, yeah, whatever. And do check out Alika, please, the more detailed answer I gave, like proving how scientific the Quran is based on those verses that you mentioned. The 8 days one actually talks about, I think, the 2 days of the earth be the time for the earth to be created. Anyway, let's get back to, can healthy things like exercise and vitamins keep you happy, right? So they're supposed to be good for you, right? And again, it's about the boundaries. Okay, um if you think just vitamins or just exercise is going to make you happy, that's been proven by so many athletes, famous athletes. There's I keep forgetting this top swimmer who's got the most gold medals ever, right? He's been known to be depressed, right? Okay, like he's an example of being super fit, really doing loads of exercise, yet it didn't do make you happy. It's not that you don't exercise or don't be healthy, it's the boundaries. You need to have the perfect balance of those things and the more meaningful thing, because exercise has some value, but it's not really meaningful just to keep jogging non-stop and stuff like that. It's not going to make you happy. You're not going to appreciate your own life like
Michael
that, is a short
Phelps.
answer.
Shah Jahan is helping you out. Is he the one?
Michael Phelps, he knows. How do you knows that, Shahjahan? Nice one.
Yeah, he's a bit
Okay,
strange.
thanks, Shad. I appreciate that. Don't say a bit strange just because he's your little brother-in-law. Gosh,
Yeah,
no need to insult him. Okay,
there you
so
go.
yeah.
I
Did you
think
give him a star? Okay, I
I'm
see.
telling him he's a good man. Yeah. So but yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah,
think whatever you're saying is fine. Health, exercise, vitamins, all that stuff. It'll contribute, but it's not the end cause. It's
yeah,
not the final solution. It'll might pull you out of a bit of depression. It'll aid in that, and I think you should. Islam promotes exercise. God has given us a body. We should take care of it, and
yeah.
so to be grateful
And
for what
it
He's
puts a
given us.
lot of emphasis on that. So we believe that the soul is initially a product of the human body. It comes into existence, and there's a verse of the Quran says halfway through pregnancy, basically, the soul is developed through the body. So there's a deep link between the body and the soul. So that's why good actions affect the soul positively, for example, right?
Hmm.
And healthy body affects, and we kind of know that it's logical. Like if you're really sick, you're not going to be happy, right? So you need to be well at least, right? But anyway, what is a more accurate way of looking at the root of happiness? So I'm trying to think of something different to say than we said
I've
before,
already
because
said
we've
before,
already
isn't it?
we kind
You've
of
addressed a
said,
lot of
yeah,
these, haven't you, Khaled?
yeah, but there's so much to say that I feel like there's so much more that could be added, right? So, what is
Hmm.
the root of happiness? So, I would try to break it into two parts, right? Which is having a connection with God, because that's the only really meaningful thing. That's kind of core, but by itself, it's not enough. Like God says in the Quran, not in the Quran, in at least sayings of Prophet Muhammad, he says that the rights of humanity are greater than the rights of God, right? God doesn't need anything from you. So what God is saying basically is that it's not really the rights. It's like what the dues that you should, like if you want to be happy, you need to do good things for other people. And I'm gonna come back to this. There's scientific research that says, and there's a great TED talk that says how to buy happiness. Okay, do check it out. And it talks about they've done experiments where people are much happier buying things for other people. They did an example of buying a coffee for somebody else rather than having coffee for yourself. You have to think about it. Like we consume so much stuff when it's so unhappy, right? Okay, you just
Mm,
keep consuming stuff, and it doesn't make you happier to have 10 cups of coffee, but giving 1 cup of coffee to a stranger or somebody, you will get amazing dopamine hit just by that, because it's an excuse to connect. And in Islam,
it's all
one of
about
the
that.
special things about over that you can eat more when you're in a group,
Mm.
right? Do you know that one, right? So you
Yep.
encourage, like, can have your fill, like, because Islam knows the psychology of eating together, right?
Mm.
So giving stuff to other people makes you the happiest countries I know are like the Arab ones, where they're kind of like they're so into doing stuff for other people.
Hospitable, basically, isn't it?
Hospitable. It's
Yeah. I mean,
insane
it's like
how hospitable.
there's another saying of the Prophet where a lot of people will be admitted into paradise or in God's presence from their good character, even when their worship of God is weak. So it doesn't mean you cannot pray or not do anything with God, but people will. God sees that a good character is one of the main purposes of being a Muslim, and that
Yeah.
is to
And
serve
you can
others.
even be a non-Muslim and still go to paradise. It's
Hmm.
God who decides, right? So anyway, so thank you very much, Mashoud. First of all, I really appreciate you. It's really nice having you here. It's more fun that way, and you added a lot of cool information. And thank you, everybody, Alika, Shah Jahan, and everybody else watching. Um, Thank you. I really appreciate you watching, and hope you benefit in some ways. Do join the class next week. I don't know what we'll be talking about. Check out the website bigquestionsanswer.com. The whole list is there. Please do press that like button. It promotes it to other people, right? If you think this is life-changing stuff, and I do think that's why I do it for free, right? Please, if you press the like button, maybe YouTube will tell other people about it. So yeah, thank you very much. Peace be upon you. Catch you next week.
Cool. See you then.
Let me just press the unstop.